So we all have a pretty good sense of what's dangerous and deadly and what's not, like lions and tigers and bears, or attempting a 1080 on a snowboard halfpipe, or rock climbing without any safety gear, or swimming in an ocean full of poisonous jellyfish. But what are some under-the-radar things that are far deadlier than people realize? In this video, we give you the top 25 things that you may not realize can potentially send you to the hospital, or even kill you. From seemingly innocent objects to natural phenomena, this list is going to make you think twice about things you eat, activities you engage in, and objects or animals you interact with. So let's jump right in. Number 1. Eating grapefruit. Quote, grapefruit in combination with many prescription drugs. Basically, grapefruit can affect the way your medications work. With some meds, adding grapefruit screws up the way your body metabolizes the drug, so you end up with far more than the prescribed dosage. It can also work in the opposite way with other drugs, leaving you with less than the prescribed dosage. This is especially bad if you have high blood pressure or arrhythmia. And here's what the FDA had to say. For example, if you drink a lot of grapefruit juice while taking certain drugs to lower cholesterol, too much of the drug may stay in your body, increasing your risk for liver and muscle damage that can lead to kidney failure. End quote. So the next time you eat something as seemingly harmless as grapefruit, make sure it's not messing up any prescription meds you might be taking. Number 2, Brazilian butt lift. Quote, a Brazilian butt lift gives people a figure reminiscent of the Kardashians and is hugely popular for getting that Instagram body. But a paper in the Aesthetic Surgery Journal found that 1 in 3,000 BBLs resulted in death, making it the world's most dangerous cosmetic procedure, end quote. So for those who don't know what a Brazilian butt lift is, it's a surgery where you basically transfer fat from other parts of your body like your stomach, hips, lower back or thighs to your butt to create more of an hourglass figure. But this procedure can be dangerous, so consider the risks if you're thinking about enhancing your assets. Number 3, penile fracture. Quote, if this happens to you, do not hesitate to get medical help. 12 weeks ago this happened to me. The tissue that fills with blood and makes the penis erect can fracture when impacted awkwardly, bend at 45 degrees and a huge hematoma and swelling. I went to the ED and after the poor student doctor saw it, I was rushed into hospital. I was informed if it wasn't surgically fixed, it could mean necrosis and removal. The surgical procedure involved degloving the penis, removing the hematoma, stitching up the fractured tissue under the skin, and then stitching the skin back on. Still having nerve pain, not to mention the effect it's had on our S-life. End quote. Wow. That sounds absolutely horrible, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Apparently, any penile fracture is considered a medical emergency, so forget about any embarrassment and trying to come up with some lame excuse as to what happened, and go to the emergency room immediately. Number 4, holding your breath while scuba diving. Quote, to most people who don't scuba dive, it may sound harmless, but if you hold your breath and ascend even a little over a meter, you can suffer major lung damage as a result of the gas in your lungs expanding from the lessening pressure. Another user writes, when I was training to dive, my instructor took a gallon milk jug down with us and he filled it half full with air and brought it upwards, explaining what he would do before we went down. It didn't take long before it filled completely with air and blew the cap off as we were going up. When we got to the surface, he said, imagine that was your lungs, end quote. Alright, well, I've never been scuba diving, but if I ever do, I will definitely keep that in mind so my lungs don't explode. Number 5, canoeing. Quote, people misjudge currents all the time. 12-year-old girl died here just last weekend, end quote. Oh my goodness. Yeah, anytime you're dealing with nature, or in this case, very fast-moving water, it can get very scary very quickly. So please be careful. Number 6, sleep apnea. Quote, not sure if it's been said, but untreated sleep apnea. You literally stop breathing and get little quality sleep. The stress on your cardiovascular system is immense. Get tested, period. Then wear the CPAP, no matter how unsexy it is. Or maybe surgery to eliminate or reduce the problem, end quote. So for those who don't know what sleep apnea is, it's related to snoring, and it's basically where your breathing repeatedly stops and starts during the night, making you unable to sleep well at all. I've actually never heard of anyone dying from sleep apnea, but it can make you feel very tired during the day, all the time. Number 7, testicular torsion. Quote, don't be embarrassed to ask for help. In all honesty, the embarrassment is all in your head. Doctors and nurses really don't give an F. They really don't care, and aren't judging you one bit. They've seen everything, and then some more. But they will judge you if you make the foolish decision not to seek help because of some made-up embarrassment and lose your balls. The pain might not be severe, but you have a few hours tops before your balls die. To put some numbers to this, if you wait longer than 6 hours, permanent damage may occur. After 12 hours, there's a 75% chance of losing the testicle. End quote. So the next time you get your testicles twisted up in a bunch, seek emergency attention immediately, as it usually requires surgery right away to save them. Number 8. Running at night without wearing lights or reflectors. Quote, oftentimes people even wear black. They think that just because they can see the car can see them. It only takes one accident to change someone's life completely. End quote. Yes, indeed. But why would you go out for a run at night in the dark in the first place? I mean, just go to the gym. Just sounds like an abduction waiting to happen. But anyhow, should you feel a burning desire to go out for a run late at night in the dark, please buy reflectors. Or get a flashlight and tape it to your butt. Number 9, smoke. Quote, it's not only the fire that can kill you, and there's very good reason you're taught to stay low escaping a fire. The smoke is a hot gas layer that can melt your face off. A working smoke alarm is the single most effective fire safety tool you can have, by far. Early warning will save your life. Most fatal fires happen in the middle of the night when families are asleep. The difference between life and death are only minutes apart. If you don't have smoke alarms on every level of your home, go out and buy them. Your life is worth the money. End quote. Amen to that. Many would be surprised to know that most people who die in house fires are killed by the smoke, not the fire, and that 2/3 of all house fire-related deaths occur in homes without working smoke alarms. Number 10, Visine, ingesting it. Quote, people seem to have this idea that a few drops of Visine in someone's drink will give them diarrhea, and do it to prank each other or get some sort of satisfaction with petty revenge. People are sitting in prison for murder for doing this. The main active ingredient is called tetrahydrozoline. Once it enters your gastro tract, it can be absorbed by your intestines and end up in your blood, causing your blood pressure and heart rate to drop to potentially life-threatening levels. It really makes me wonder how many people have died due to people copycatting that scene in Wedding Crashers. End quote. Wow. Had no idea something like eye drops could do that to you, but just goes to show, even silly pranks like putting eye drops in someone's drink can be fatal. So use things the way they're supposed to be used, or suffer the consequences. Number 11, digging holes in the sand. Quote, when I was small, we went on holiday to France. I remember watching a little boy, slightly older than me, digging a hole in the sand. It was really deep. Suddenly, all the sand collapsed on him. All the adults rushed to dig him out. I think he was okay, but it terrified me. End quote. Yeah, sounds like that boy got lucky, but I've heard of so many stories of people dying while digging deep holes in the sand and having the sand suddenly collapse on them. So just don't do it. Burying yourself alive is a terribly tragic and sad way to go. Number 12, throwing a single punch. Quote, here in Australia it's been criminalized because fights in pubs and clubs are pretty common. The single punch isn't what causes injury, but falling to the ground and hitting their head on the curb can kill, especially since drunk people usually don't have the capacity to soften their fall. Think twice before you risk losing or taking a life over losing your pride for a night. End quote. Yeah, I've always wondered why I've read so many articles about people dying from a single knockout punch, and now it all makes sense. It's not the punch that kills, but the fall that takes place after the knockout punch is thrown. Number 13, eating a slug. Quote, a kind of random one, but don't eat uncooked slugs or snails. They can have parasites that will make you paralyzed and eventually kill you. An Australian kid died a couple years ago from it. An awful way to go, end quote. Yes, that incident happened in Australia back in 2010. A 19-year-old named Sam Ballard ate a slug after a silly dare among teenage boys. He developed rat lungworm disease from the slug, which was infected by a parasitic worm, fell into a coma for over a year, and when he woke up, he was paralyzed and unable to eat without a tube. Sam would die 8 years later in 2018. Just an incredibly sad story here, and a reminder to us all to think twice before eating things we're not supposed to. Number 14, acetaminophen. Quote, it's rough on your liver in large doses. I know a lot of people ignore the recommended dose and pop them like they're Skittles for pain. This is incredibly dangerous. Another user writes, it's in so many over-the-counter drugs and can really do a number on your liver. A lot of people don't realize when they're sick that they're taking over the recommended daily dose, end quote. Yes, acetaminophen is more commonly known as Tylenol, and adults should not take more than 3,000 milligrams a day. Taking more, especially 7,000 milligrams or more, can lead to severe overdose problems, and long-term excessive use can also lead to liver or kidney disease. Number 15, touchscreen consoles in cars. Quote, Mazda now disables touch functionality in their vehicles because they found that when drivers interact with the touchscreen, they drift the vehicles to the right. Taking our eyes off the road to press 3 buttons in 3 different positions, with a latency each time you press a button while trying to maintain control of the vehicle during freeway traffic, is dangerous, end quote. Completely agree with this one. Nothing in the car should be distracting you from keeping your eyes on the road at all times. Number 16, standing under waterfalls. Quote, loose rocks or debris from the river or stream above could fall and crush you, end quote. Good point. But you have to wonder how many people actually stand underneath waterfalls. I mean, I go to water parks sometimes and go under man-made waterfalls here and there, but okay. The next time you go to the bottom of Niagara Falls or wherever and think about standing underneath it, don't do it. Number 17, birthdays. Quote, you are 8% more likely to die on your birthday than on any other day of the year. Probably a combination of factors. Parties, substances, extra travel increases risk. Also probably includes suicides. Holidays often bring out the worst when your mental health isn't good, end quote. Yeah, so the next time your birthday rolls around, play it safe and don't go overboard. Everything in moderation, as they say, because, you want to try to make it to your next birthday too. Number 18, hippos. Quote, hippos kill more people than elephants, buffalo, lions, tigers, rhinoceroses, and bears combined. They are the deadliest land mammal by far, end quote. Yeah, most people think that because hippos are herbivores, they're tame, when in fact they're very aggressive and territorial. So stay away from hippos if you're ever on safari. Number 19, putting your feet or legs on the dash of the car. Quote, I stopped doing that after hearing a horror story from an EMT who went to a crash site where they found a passenger's legs thrown over their shoulders like a scarf. F that, end quote. Yeah, those airbags are designed to inflate in a split second, and if your legs are on the dash of the car, they could send your knees flying into your face at 100 miles an hour. So best to keep them on the mat underneath you at all times. Number 20, walking downstairs. Quote, walking downstairs with your hands in your pockets. Never, ever do it, especially not drunk. A fall down even 1 or 2 stairs with no hands to catch you can break your neck. I've seen a video of a man tripping and falling down 4 stairs, hitting the top of his head on the wall and dying right there on the stairwell, end quote. Wow. You'd never think something as harmless as walking down a flight of stairs, something many of us do every single day, could be dangerous. But all it takes is one misstep to send you tumbling down and hitting your head on something at just the wrong angle. Number 21, horses. Quote, they weigh 1,200 pounds, they're extremely jittery, and they can crush you or kick you to death on accident. And that's just horses in general. Stallions will try to hurt you just to assert dominance, and these are animals that have been known to bite each other's throats out when they fight. Don't mess with horses unless you know what you're doing. Always be careful, even if you do, end quote. Yes, probably the most well-known accident involving a horse was that of Christopher Reeve, the actor who played Superman in the 1980s. In May 1995, Reeve had a horrible accident during a horse riding competition in which he broke the top 2 vertebrae of his spinal cord, leaving him paralyzed from the shoulders down. He used a wheelchair and ventilator for the rest of his life until he died in 2004. So the next time you think about going on that horseback riding adventure, consider the risks and be careful. Number 22, constipation. Quote, as an RN, I've seen too many people die or almost die from bowel obstructions. If you haven't pooped in a week, I'd be very concerned if I were you. How to not die from your own poop? Number 1, water plus fiber. Too little water, you die. Too little fiber, you die. Balance is key. Number 2, exercise. Stella got her groove back, but you can't get your intestines back when they're necrotic. End quote. Well, I never knew there were even people who could go a week without pooping. But if that's you, go see a doctor, because it might just kill you. Number 23, giving birth. Quote, had a friend from high school recently lose his wife giving birth to their second child. I don't have the details, but she either bled internally or had a blood clot. Had to have emergency C-section. She was dead within an hour of giving birth to their daughter. Another user writes, "My OB died a day after giving birth to her third child from a blood clot. Her husband is also a physician and recognized what was happening immediately, and there was still nothing they could do. Truly awful." End quote. Yes, people think this doesn't happen nowadays, and it's true that maternal mortality is a lot lower than it used to be, but it does still happen. So thank your mothers and your wives. They risk their lives bringing life into the world. Number 24, rescuing a drowning person. Quote, "Drowning people are completely panicked with one goal, which is to get air immediately, and they will climb on top of people in their blind panic and fear with little to no thought as long as they can keep their heads above water. There have been stories of young children drowning their older siblings and parents as a kid climbs on top of their parents' heads and submerges them underwater. Rescuing a drowning person is no joke, and if you yourself are a poor swimmer and or not trained in in-water rescue, do not attempt rescue. Your safety is top priority. Instead, immediately call emergency services and try to either extend something out for the person to grab onto or throw something to them." End quote. Well said. Yeah, the gut reaction is just to jump into the water to try to help, because that's what we always see in the movies and on Baywatch. But always try to extend something out first. It may look like you're being selfish and prioritizing your life by not getting in there, but it's really not. Number 25, hypothermia. Quote, "If your clothes get soaked and you can't dry out and warm up, temperatures in the 50 degrees Fahrenheit can kill you. This is how people going on day hikes get killed. Something happens and they can't get back to their car or lodge. The weather changes and they can't find shelter and they get wet. They die of exposure." End quote. That's a great reminder. 50 degrees Fahrenheit can feel like 20 or even lower if you're wet and it's windy outside. So stay warm and stay dry. Well, there you have it, the top 25 things that are far deadlier than people realize. Have any of these things happened to you? Or is there something you thought should have been on the list, but wasn't? Let us know in the comments section below. But hope you enjoyed this video and took a thing or two away.